want to kind of shift a little bit past the burnout stories, which I honestly like. Thank you for your vulnerability and honesty, because I feel like so many people can relate to that story in some way or another, right? It may look a little different, the context may be a little different, but the emotion, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we've all been there. So thank you for that. And I want to shift a little bit to basically what you have done and what you have built. There's a couple of things
Mm,
that make you unique. One is that you are one of the first women of color to raise over $1 million in venture capital, which, as we know, statistically is an accomplishment in and of itself. It doesn't matter what the product is, don't matter what, just getting that venture capital for black women particularly is a
mm,
very difficult thing to do. And so
mm,
as someone who's overcome barriers, because you obviously had to do that to get to where you are,
mm.
what's your biggest piece of advice for people who other black women who are entrepreneurial? I'm an entrepreneur too. This isn't my only business. Like, what could you tell us about facing barriers when it comes to launching and executing a successful business? Because there's a lot of people who have businesses, right?
Mhm.
Successful is the next part. So, do you have any
Yeah.
advice or words of wisdom for us?
Mm. For as it relates to, say it one more time.
Just anything to do with, I say, entrepreneurship, just
Hmm.
starting a business. And you could relate to product based because that's where you are known for, but if you have any
Hmm.
just general pieces of advice.
I think that it's important, I think what happened in 2019 to kind of call it 2022, when we had the big like entrepreneur boom and everybody was working for
Yes.
themselves and
Yeah.
money was just freaking growing on trees and falling from the sky, and and it was great to be black because everybody was offering you everything, and DEI was actually like something that
Mm-hmm.
people were focused on and all that kind of stuff, right? Those times have changed, unfortunately. Um, but I think that it's important to understand. Like I was just talking to somebody today, and we were, because I work through Intro on a mentoring app. And and so she was talking to me about her business and how she's invested all this money into her company, and she's ready to get it off the ground, but because she's invested so much money in, now she wants to get investors, and but it hasn't quite launched yet, right? My thing to her was, it's not time for you to raise money because you don't really even know what you're raising money for, right? Like, first see what your business is, see what it wants to be, understand where it's going, understand what your barriers are, understand, like, can you even make money, right? Because it's funny, you do all this stuff. I mean, I remember in the beginning, you do all this stuff to start your company, and then nobody comes.
Yeah. It's silence, crickets.
And you're like, I've built this website, I've done all these things, and then nobody is here, right? And it's wild, right? And in her case, she's got a plan. She's gonna be fine. But my point is like, don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush. When it comes to being successful, one thing is for sure: it is not going to happen exactly the way that you thought it would, and
Mm.
it takes time, and you need to understand it, and it needs to also understand you. You know, And so don't think that you got to just go, go, go. Don't be afraid to have a job while you're starting your business or while you're running your business, right? If your business is barely making enough money to take care of itself, and it's taking care of you, and you're trying to figure out how to be successful and grow it and do all the things, that if you're that person, then you probably may need to get some sort of a job on the side, because you have to really invest a lot into your business in order for it to do what it needs to do and grow. You may be a person where you've actually seen success and it's going well, right? And you're trying to figure out how to get from this kind of middle place where you've actually seen success, you've made a couple $1 million, you're trying to scale it to 10, and you're just trying to figure out how to do that, right? Like, these are like the most precious times when you're in that place. and really taking the time to understand that and understand that is important. Understanding where you want to go. What is it that you're trying to make? Who is it that you're trying to serve? If you make a product and you're in the middle place and you figured out how to make a couple $1 million online, maybe it's time, since you figured out that you can make a couple million online, maybe it's time for you to take that to a retailer. But who's the right retailer, right? Like it, there's just so many levels to it, and but it's so important to just take the time to figure it out. Not too much time, but not too little time either, and not be. I just think that whatever we do, we shouldn't try to rush to our success, because it just doesn't happen in a rush, right? You normally are successful after you've been doing something for 10 plus years. That's when you really start to see. Some people, it happens before that, right? And that's great if it does. That just doesn't happen every day, you know? But you just got to kind of go with the flow and ride through it, and be willing to be on the ride, because it's really fun in the beginning. It doesn't feel like it is, when you get to the place that you've been working so hard to get to, you know, you realize that there isn't really a destination. You're
Yeah.
always looking for the next bit of growth, the next year, the next set of growth of your EBITDA, the next set of growth on your margins, the next set of growth that's going to get you to whatever the next place is, you know. But like when you can really realize it like that, you're always going to do that. And also, don't revere people just because you see that they've made it, because we don't always know what it took for the person to get to where they are, right? I'm not saying don't look to them for advice. I'm not saying don't be happy for them and their success. I just hear so many times people say to me, well, I'm not on your level yet, or like, it's almost like you put yourself down when you're complimenting somebody else on the success that they've gotten to, but like there's no need for you to put yourself down. There is no level. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
all this shit is just in our imagination. It's not
Right.
real.
Right. Right. And
Focus
there'll
on
always
your
be another level.
it's I mean, it never stops. And so just focus on yourself, focus on your business, be in it for real all the way. Give it all you got. You know what I mean? And also understand that when you're giving it all you got, if it's not doing what it needs to do in order for you to maintain giving it all you got, don't be afraid to make changes.
Yes. I think you've captured a lot of what people experience when they're doing entrepreneurship. You've said several things. So like one thing is that people don't understand it's a long game. Entrepreneurship, there is no such thing as an overnight success. We see it. What gets curated is an overnight success, right? It's
But
like
it's
we didn't
not.
know who B was. Now we do, because B has got venture capital and B is all over the place. But that we don't see the 8 years, the night, like whatever you did
Yeah.
before that. So there is no overnight success. But tied to that, you made a really good point, which because of that, you need to invest in your business understanding that. So it's not smart to go all in, throw every piece of dollar you got
No.
into your business to then think it's going to be an overnight. It's like, then you might need to, like you said, it might need to start out as a side hustle. It might
Yeah.
need to start out as something you do on the weekends, or whatever that is. It may need to start with friends and family as you test and adjust and all those things. And I think the other misconception that people have, particularly around venture capital and investment, is that you need a proof of concept. That no one just comes around shaking money and like, that's it. This isn't Shark Tank. And even
No.
actually on Shark Tank, I would argue they have a concept, they have a product, they have some aspects that are fully fleshed out. When people get venture capital dollars, what people don't understand is they're already, what by the definition of a newer entrepreneur, they're already really successful.
Yeah, because that's the other thing to know. Like, whether it's venture capital or private equity, which we've been able to experience both, which I'm grateful for. And even our partner now, when we just went through our acquisition time, is a private equity fund, right? There are rules to private equity. There are rules to venture capital.
Yep.
There's some that can work with you when you're in a growth phase, right? But growth doesn't necessarily mean that you're at $0 or $200,000. Sometimes it means that you got to be at $8 million or $10 million before they can even write a check, right?
Yes.
And honestly, you just knowing that most businesses fail, right? You just need to be conscientious and make sure that you actually have a thing that is going to work. And you have to give that thing the time to show and tell you that it's going to, right? Because if you go too fast, it can end up showing you, and then you've taken in money, you've put yourself in a circumstance, in a situation that may be really really hard to get out of, or you can just end up losing your business altogether, right?
Yes.
And that's the hard part that a lot of times people don't talk about. The amount of businesses right now, especially black owned businesses that have closed in the last year or the last couple of years, is ridiculous,
So many.
right?
Agreed.
And part of that is because people were, like I said, money was just falling out the
Yes.
sky, right?
Yes.
And that's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's just that it's not a realistic thing.
It's not sustainable. That
It's
doesn't
not.
mean that you're going to have that money every, and if that's what's making your business successful is somebody throwing 20 grand at you, 200 grand at you, then you don't have a, and that's the thing I wish people
You
understand, you
don't.
don't have a business. Like if it's dependent
Exactly.
on the generosity of others,
You
then
don't
you
have a
don't have
business.
business. And that's
Yeah.
what happened, right? You saw people over index in investing for optics, and
Yeah.
once that money, it wasn't cool no more.
Because it's
And
going to dry up. It's the money, you're going to spend the money, and you have to be operating to get to a place where 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 the business is sustaining itself, right?
yes,
And that money is sitting there at being useful for you, so you can borrow other money, or so you can, right, so
yes,
you can. But and I don't mean to come from a place of lack, but when we're talking about advices, this is probably one of the things that I'm really passionate about when it comes to helping people and advising them. um, because we just think, I need money, I need money. I remember back in the day, I used to tell my brother all the time, who's my co-founder, right? This is before we got into Target. I would be like, sorry, we need money. He was like, B, we don't need no money yet. When we need money, you're gonna know. And I remember we got into Target. We were talking to Target, and he was like, now we
now
need money, right?
that's what people don't
And
understand. That is so important, that piece.
yeah,
Like, I don't want to cut you off. I want you to focus
no,
it.
it's
Like, I love
real.
where we're going because that's what people don't understand about business. And it also depends on what kind of business do you want. And that's where it
Yeah,
comes back to being realistic. Do you want to do like a small mom and pop store? Now,
yeah,
that's very different than the goals of the honeypot company, right? Which is like,
right.
we want to be in Target. These are very different paths. The principles are the same, right? The slow and steady
Of
growth, all
course.
those things. But it's really important to understand. I love it because I say the same thing to people all the time, like just talking with friends. I'm like, you need to know what your business is because
Yeah,
that matters. You like, now you got in Target, now you need money, right? You knew
exactly.
that piece. Whereas if you were going a different direction, you might need money at a different point or not at all, right? Depending on
Exactly.
what you want to do.
Exactly. And if you just want to have like a business that's yours, that sustains you and your family, right? Like, honestly, it's probably better that you just do your thing. You don't want to sell it
Yes.
at any point. You want it to stay in your family forever. Then it's not really in your best interest to take in venture capital money or private equity money, because when you take in that kind of money, then at some point you're going to have to either IPO or you're going to have to sell it, because
You lose
the
control.
it's not just that you lose control. It's more so that that kind of money requires you to do that. Otherwise,
Yes.
how will they get their money back?
Yes. Yes.
So you have to know what kind of, and then the other reason why you need to know what kind of business you want to have is because that is, you also have to be willing to give of yourself. You have to be willing to sacrifice of yourself for the
Yes.
next, call it 10, 15, 20 years, right? Are you willing to give up your time, your energy, time away from your family, right? Like, there's just a lot of things to uncover past the money, and it can be a lot. Are you ready to be responsible for many humans and how they eat and how they live and how they pay their bills, and are you willing to make sure that you have resources to be able to care for them and treat them like human beings, and have insurance, and have, like, all these things have to come into play when you're trying to consider what kind of business you want to have, who you want to serve, how you want to be, how much money you want to make, what do you want to do with that money? Do you want to invest it in social impact? Do you want to invest it on your there's just so many things to consider, and so
Yes.
it's hard, but it's doable.
It's absolutely doable, but we have to keep it real too. I mean,
We
that's the
do.
part that I really appreciate with the transparency, is because everybody is out here, particularly with product-based businesses. This happens a lot where it's like, I want to do insert the next thing. Whatever your favorite product is, you're like, I'm going to do the next of that. But they're not thinking about all the other pieces that come into it. It's like, if to be the brand that you love, that you want to sponsor, or whatever it is, right? To be that brand, to be that level of visible, and to be that level of generating of revenue, there's 1,000 steps in between and 1,000 decisions you have to make
Yeah.
that are consequential, that
Yeah.
actually change your life. It's like,
Yeah.
are you willing to adjust yourself to be that person? To
Yeah.
be there. And
Yeah.
the answer may be no, but you don't want to figure out that answer
When it's
too
too
late
late.
when you've signed the dotted line, right?
Yeah,
Which is why
because
this is so powerful.
once you bring in that first bit of money, you better know that your job now becomes raising money,
Money.
right? Your
Right, it's a
job your
cycle.
your job now becomes dealing with boards. Your job now becomes handling strategy, getting out of the weeds. Your job now becomes, what are we doing for the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10
Yeah.
years, right? And it's it can be a bit nuanced, and it's hard. Like, it's really, really hard to do,
Yeah.
and you constantly you're constantly learning things, especially if you're a person like me. I didn't go to business school.
Many
Can
people have
you
not.
imagine? Like, I'm in these rooms with these investment bankers and strategics and private equity funds and everybody that you can imagine, and I'm just trying to follow along because they're saying things that you just have no
It's a
idea.
whole different
You
language, right? It's a
you
new language.
what does that even mean? And so
Yeah.
I'm constantly like, hey, what does that acronym mean? Or what, like, okay, how does that work? And I'm grateful because the people that I have around me are willing to stop and say, hey, yeah, this is what it means. Because it's not like you can always stop and be like, let me look that up real quick, or you know what I mean? And so it's a lot. But one thing that I'm here to tell you is that if you have it in you, you can do it.
Yes, yes. This isn't a discouragement, but what I like about this conversation, and I think it's a good place to leave it, is what you just said. If you want it, if you've got it in you, you're going to get it. But
Yeah.
what I also want to be cautious about is that we have a lot of people telling people, "Oh, go for it, just do it," but they're not being honest about what it takes to get there. And that's the
Yeah.
part, particularly with venture capital, all these pieces. I'm really grateful for you giving us this time to talk about that, because this is the conversation we need to be having. And for those of you who want to be the next honeypot, the whatever you've got coming up, you need to be taking your pen and paper out right now and writing down these answers, or meditating and journaling on these pieces. No matter what your business is, honestly, these are questions you need to ask yourself.